Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Somebody decided to have a baby and threw a wrench in everything that we do together.
Stop giving your personal information to the internet.
Well, I mean, not only that, but just stuff would come out, and it didn't really seem like it was.
Going back in?
Well, no, I meant like it wasn't like Zach, Justin, and Jared talk on YouTube material.
That's
Yes,
true.
that's true.
There was Violet Night. That was something.
Oh my god. Hey, but Tales of the Jedi came out. That was pretty good. We didn't talk about that, but Tales of the Jedi was good.
We never talked about KOTOR.
We still should at some point, to some capacity.
I'll have to play it again.
No, actually,
The 15th time since we started talking about this.
5 minutes to play one play.
hey, I'll finish this playthrough, but I need to play it again to really get what I feel.
Then after you finish,
But though, this year is actually the game's 20th anniversary, so maybe we could just wait a bit.
Oh, maybe we could just play the remastered version when it doesn't actually come out because it's been canceled.
Commander
When it-
Combat.
Comes out for the PlayStation 6, is that right?
Oh, yeah, Jason Schreier. No, I've heard that it's pretty much been canceled, so. Probably for the best.
It really is. There was no way they were going to make good. There was no way that everybody was going to be happy with that remake.
The only thing we really lose is, a version of KOTOR that, doesn't have totally recycled character models between all the NPCs.
and 8 voices.
I was going to say
The same 6 lines for every alien.
Shaka.
Pucha Shakafaka.
Ah, she's going Nikki!
And then you end up just hitting the A button to skip past what they're saying.
And then you accidentally select the line of dialogue you don't want to pick.
Wait, what do you mean I just killed the orphan? I didn't mean to poison all of Manon. What?
Like, that's why you
I wanted to tell the guy that.
That's why you quick save. Anyway.
Yes, we got sidetracked a bit. I'm sorry.
Canderous Ordo.
He's awesome. I
mean, Andorus Ordo.
Nice transition.
Oh, that was good stuff. Yes, we're not here to talk about a really old game. We're here to talk about a brand new TV show that premiered on Disney Plus recently, called Andor. The show that nobody wanted, but then everyone realized they wanted to keep going once they started watching it.
True.
It and Rogue One are the best things that Disney has made.
That's serious. Well, I would say Mandalorian Season 1 is up there, but I think writing-wise, I think Andor is a better show than Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think from just a pure writing standpoint, it most certainly is. Like, I kept looking at all these headlines and all these interviews about the show before it came out, and it just really seemed like the showrunners were really confident in the story that they were going to tell. You look at all these other shows like,
She-Hulk.
Kenobi.
Kenobi.
Specifically from the year 2022 for Star Wars. Like you had Kenobi, like you just said, and
Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, man.
Their storylines for like a 2-hour movie that gets stretched to 4+ hours for no reason, and they have the most brain dead plot points in them.
I can tell you why that is. Remember, this Solo is the reason that the Kenobi movie and the Boba Fett movie moved from 2-hour movies to 6-episode series.
It's a big reason.
That's the big reason, because Solo flunked so bad, which I don't really understand because I actually really liked Solo. I mean, it wasn't an amazing movie, but I liked it. I thought it was enjoyable. But they're stretching out Book of Boba Fett specifically. Like, that could have been 4 episodes.
Well, the other thing, too, is, that's a big part of it, for sure, the financial success of Solo, but another thing, too, is, like, you think about Disney Plus, people are compelled to keep their subscriptions because there's a new show coming out.
Yes.
And if they stretch these things out, they put out more episodes on a weekly basis, it keeps people talking, it keeps people engaged, and it keeps people from stopping their subscriptions.
It's true.
And it helps with, just like you mentioned the content about how Andor's the show that nobody really wanted. And kind of with the opposite of Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett, those are 2 iconic characters that would hype people up, that would get people interested, that would bring the crowds, supposedly, to go and watch.
Yes.
And so it feels like because Andor was just the opposite and was a character that a lot of people couldn't even name from Rogue One.
That's true.
From a movie that wasn't a main Star Wars movie and had no recognizable characters in it. Like, you've got this character that nobody wants, but somehow they're just given more freedom, like you said. Whereas Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett felt very marketed, very think tank. Like, they just worked it out through less through like actual directors trying to make a story, like you said, with Andor, and more of just people trying to make this the biggest, most marketable and hypeable thing of all time.
It's like, ooh, rematch between Anakin and Vader. Ooh.
Obi-Wan and Vader, but yeah.
But yeah.
What did you say?
Anakin and... Wait, did I say Anakin?
Anakin and Vader. I guess it's an internal rematch, and Anakin lost that one.
Thanks for sending you there, buddy.
I will say this. There were parts of those series that were really good, but Andor, it's like, for me, once the excitement went out on like Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, I don't know that I'll go back and watch those. Maybe the Mandalorian episodes of Book of Boba Fett and maybe like the last episode of Kenobi. But like Andor, I could probably sit down. I can't watch isolated episodes. I'd probably have to start from the beginning and watch it all the way through, just because it's really good.
Yeah,
it's something I could revisit and watch again, especially the whole series when he's in the prison.
Oh, the prison arc is so good.
The whole prison arc was amazing for a lot of reasons.
But what gets me interested is that this is only half the show. Like, it was always intended to be 2 seasons, beginning to end. And so I'm really curious how some of these things from the first season are going to tie into the second. Because it's not like Mandalorian, where they never expected it to actually be big. And they're like, oh shoot, this is actually famous. Let's make a second season and throw in everything we can into it. No, this was always intended to be like this perfect story, just going from line to line to line to line.
Which you could see in the writing, which is... The writing in this show, some of the dialogue is...
Actually sounds like dialogue and people talking to each other instead of just expositing everywhere.
That's the big thing with dialogue, I feel, that is missing in a lot of these, genre shows. Not just like Disney specific ones, but just, the market tested stuff that you talked about earlier, Jared. Like, it's all just exposition. It's all just setting up these J.J. Abrams mystery boxes for like them to build up this franchise.
Yeah.
They actually feel like people talking like real individuals, but like, not all having the same type of vocabulary per person. You have the reality of the people on a Ferrix, the blue collar workers who are just trying to get by. You have the people who are in the ISB, they sound a bit more puffed up.
And that was the most interesting part of the whole show. That was one of the most interesting parts of the whole show for me. William and Jared were talking about it, how like there was a little bit wonky when there was like 12 people running all of the sectors of the galaxy.
Yeah.
That was a little bit wonky. But otherwise, like the ISB wanting to control each sector and like having a meeting where they're like, this is going on here and this is going on there. And
all their internal politics.
But I thought that was... It gives new light to the Empire, which I thought was interesting.
But like even down to a smaller level with like I forget his name. I forget a lot of the characters' name in this. The stalker guy that really...
Oh, Cyril.
Cyril.
It's like Woody.
But like even his organization that he worked for is like the stopgap measure between actually getting the Imperials involved. Like, it's just the corporate interest security group or whatever.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. And so they're like an interesting part where they actually monitor all the situations on these smaller worlds, and only if they can't handle it do the Imperial stormtroopers and army get brought in, which is so interesting. That's world building, and I like it. And he acts differently than an ISB guy would, and so it's just really cool to me.
Mm-hmm. And then you have everything involving like Mon Mothma and the other senators and the other lobbyists and whatnot. Like, that was legitimately interesting too.
What's funny about that is remember how in the prequels, like the parts where they had the Senate meetings were some of like the most like there were like a visible break in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The part where they have the heist on Aldhani, and she's sitting in the Senate chamber, and all of a sudden everybody in the Senate chamber, you start hearing pop conversations of like, whoa, what's going on? You hear different aliens talking. And it goes all the way through the Senate chamber, and then you finally find out that everybody's finding out about the heists on Aldani without them specifically saying it. That, I think, was the best part of this whole show, is like not everything was flat out explained. Like, I know that there was stuff that I missed because they were showing, not telling, which I really appreciate. But that part was awesome. When she's like, what's going on? Heist on Aldani. And you hear everybody, well, she didn't even say that. It was like everybody was seeing that. And then it cuts to the people at ISB finding out. And the people in Luthen's shop finding out. I was like, this is freaking awesome. Everybody's realizing that the heist was successful. Like, that part was awesome.
Like you said, they didn't just have a character just walk up and say, wow, the heist was such a big success that all of the senators have been talking about it. Like, an example that was brought to my attention is right after the heist, someone at the ISB says that they have greater control over monitoring communications, like interstellar communications throughout all the different worlds. Like, it's just kind of a throwaway line, like this typical thing you would hear when they're talking about greater overreach from the government. But that's the reason why Bix was captured. She made a communication a little bit, like 2 episodes later.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's totally
and Luthen was wise enough to know that, hey, they're probably watching and monitoring all the different communications. And so Bix is the one that gets captured because she got foolish about it. They don't have an ISB person come and say, do you know why we captured you? We captured you because we are monitoring more communication. No, they just said it naturally when it was supposed to be said, and then they trusted the audience to be smart enough to actually remember that.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice?
Isn't it nice when writers actually trust the people they're making their show for?
It's just, is this Star Wars? Or are we talking about...
It's the antithesis to the Marvel shows.
It's the antithesis to the sequel trilogy.
It's the antithesis to just Hollywood writing in general.
Yeah.
Hollywood executives are always being like, oh, the audience is going to be lost. You have to throw in all this stuff to make sure they're not going to be sheepish idiots that don't pick up on the things that we're putting in our movie. But, this is a story told by smart individuals who
know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Who actually care about... Like, I thought it was cool when the dad, Clem, which I thought was a nice throwaway little line that I didn't realize his name was Clem. So when he gets picked up on Aldani, he's like, this is Clem. I didn't realize that was the dad's name until later. I was like, oh, that's so good. That shows you that Luthen actually knows who Cassian Andor is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just some random guy that he picked up. I thought that was cool. But, I forgot my point. Anyway, that was part of it. That was cool.
No, yeah.
The clones. That's what it was. I like that they kept, clones, similar to how they're doing with Bad Batch. Right now, all of the clones are still there. They haven't, jumped to stormtroopers yet.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was cool, because in the beginning, that's why Cassian's dad ends up dead, is because
he got killed by clones.
He gets killed by clones, which would be right on cue with what the timeline is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's cool that the writers actually give a crap about when they're talking about in Star Wars, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Which speaks volumes, because sometimes people mess up the timeline.
It did feel interesting to me that, it was written in such a way to where it does respect the timeline in terms of when things happen and, just the minute details of all the production and everything that go into that, but it also felt like a show that was uniquely in its own sort of sphere. It doesn't feel like science fiction all the time. It just feels like a spy thriller that's happening to take place within this universe. And so you go to Coruscant one episode and you're like, oh yeah, this is the same episode. This is the same universe where all the space wizards exist.
It's just like how Rogue One was essentially a World War II movie. Yes. If it wasn't for the fact that you're seeing spaceships flying around, everyone acts like a soldier would have acted in a real-time war situation.
Yep.
In this movie, like you said, there's conspiracies, there's tactics, there's investigations and authority, and people actually talking about policy in a way that matters and how it affects people, and it's all very I don't want to say real because it's still Star Wars, and like the inciting incident of the final episode is a 20-foot hologram of a dead woman. Like it's still Star Wars. It's still got its goofy moments, but it felt a lot more real and lived in than a lot of the other Star Wars properties we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like going and being in Ferrix, I was like, yeah, I can see where people would live there. Like if you went to somewhere like I don't know, Andor or something, that's clearly just like, oh yeah, we're in the redwood forest part of the galaxy, you know? Whereas Ferrix is like, oh, these people live here. They have all the gloves on the wall where all the workers go and work in the scrapyard or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it feels lived in, if that makes... I agree with you, lived in.
And the masonry, all the bricks are made from basically...
Dead people?
Yeah, dead people.
Yeah,
just that was cool. That was
a cultural part of their thing, yeah.
And it makes it so much more satisfying when that one guy uses a brick to body somebody. It's like,
he uses her brick, Marva's brick, to kill the
one guy and
kill the officer who knocked over the droid.
Yes.
But no, like I was talking with someone about how in the first 5 minutes we get more of a cultural impact on 2 separate brand new worlds than we have on most every other world introduced in Disney Star Wars.
Yeah,
we see that dark world where Cassian goes to go get information about his sister.
Yeah, he goes to a brothel.
And he goes to a brothel, and there's other parts of the city that show like seedy, but it's different, and it looks as a different aesthetic. And there's water everywhere, and there's the corporate guards, and there's all of these different things that market as different. And then you go to Ferrix, where it feels lived in, but it feels different than the first world. Mm-hmm. And they both have a clear culture that is actually shown visually without them having to say anything.
Which I think the show does. Overall, I think the show is probably the best you could show.
That's fine.
I think the thing that this show does the best, and I think we're kind of talking about it, is that it shows more than it... you have to have somebody say flat out, oh, we're going to go heisting on Aldhani. When they wake up in the morning, it's like, yeah, today's the day of the heist. And it's not that they need to, and everybody's like ready to go, but they don't have to say, okay, everybody pack your shoes and make sure that you get your Imperial thing on because we're going to go to the heist on Aldhani. And anyway.
And it feels tense. What you just mentioned reminded me of one of the biggest reasons why this show worked for me. And I apologize to anyone listening to the show who likes Rebels, but I'm going to crap on Rebels for a bit. And look, I know it's a show for kids. I know that it's marketed towards kids.
But so was Clone Wars.
So was Clone Wars. And it had a bunch of stuff in it that was, it went hard, for a lack of a better term. Like
General Krell.
General Krell being an example. A lot of on-screen death and a lot of on-screen, assassinations. Whereas with Rebels, I don't really care so much about the fact that a lot of the deaths are off-screen. That's not my point. My point in that show is when...
It doesn't treat the subjects maturely.
No, it doesn't.
No.
You have like the crew of the Ghost. They do Aldhani heist in pretty much every single episode, but it all gets resolved in that one episode, and it feels like just this trite little, oh hey, let's go on an adventure sort of thing. And the Empire's always just idiotic in those episodes, and you don't really get a sense that they're of any threat to the main characters.
Oh man.
With it all, like, how do these people rule the galaxy?
No, really.
Not so with Andor. I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Continue. Like, how is Thrawn supposed to be a competent admiral when he gets beat by space whales?
Yep. Oh my god.
It's a whole nother thing.
Dude, tell me. Anyway,
but yeah,
sorry.
Competent Imperials and everything.
Well, not just competent Imperials, but to Justin's point about Aldhani, where you really feel the intensity knowing today is the day of the heist. This is when the eye is going to happen. Leading up to that is 3 episodes of build-up where you really get the feeling that this small crew of individuals who, mind you, none of them are force sensitive. It's just them on their own with guns and their wit and their tenacity. And you really feel, because of that build-up and the establishment of what's at stake and really the establishment of this whole scenario and the setting, that it's going to be a pain in the butt for them to do this.
Yes.
And it's, again, it's basically it's a movie in and of itself. Them going to do this heist, and you feel the threat of it and the Anyway,
I was impressed at how it handled some of these darker situations. Like halfway through halfway through the season, by the end of the Aldani arc, pretty much every character was dead.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they needed to essentially introduce most new characters because almost all of the people from the Aldani heist were dead.
Died except for the blonde chick.
And her
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, she was. I forgot she was there.
She stayed on the planet.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot she was there. Yeah.
But essentially, they had to start over, which is something that would happen in a real life heist. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't necessarily be one guy gets the heroic last stand. Like 2 of the people died in the vault, and they were just like killed, and then boom, move on.
Yeah,
like the one guy that was trying to run over to support another, he got shot, and then that was it. That was the end of that guy.
And then the mole and the Imperial forces too that helps him out. He gets dumped off. Yeah.
I had one of them I really liked. I like the kid that wrote the manifesto or whatever. That one.
He got killed by a loose card.
Yeah, he got killed by just happenstance, which sucked because I actually liked his character a lot. But I was like, man, it was real stakes. They're not just going off against an incompetent empire.
In the prison break, a whole bunch of the prisoners got shot or got electrocuted.
And freaking Andy Serkis didn't know how to.
He didn't get out. He didn't make it out of the prison.
Other people.
Exactly.
He was the one who was like the leader of the whole thing.
He'll probably get caught by the ISB in the next season. So,
or he'll just stay dead. Knowing how the writers treated the show, he's probably going to stay dead.
I wouldn't mind if he was dead, though. I liked this character, and I like that moment where he's just like, they're about to jump, and he's like, I don't know how to swim. It's like,
and just leave it at that.
Oh. And Andor is looking like he's ready to help him. I will come and help you, but then he gets knocked off.
He gets knocked off the edge. That was like, that whole part was so sad. I was like,
and they stayed with Kino for like 2 more seconds, and that's the last we see or hear of him in the entire show.
It's true.
It feels very matter of fact in that moment.
Yeah,
they don't drag it out to be some like, it's emotional, but like they don't do the typical movie thing where it's like
goodbye, brother.
Yeah, they don't do that sort of thing.
I'll remember you. I'll come back for you, Kino.
So there are a couple of things about that. One, I want to touch on one thing from Aldani. There were 2 things from Aldani. That one thing that I was like, all right, and one thing that I thought was really cool. And I think all 3 of us said it when we saw it. But there was one prop on Aldani where I was like, all right, come on. Somebody was dropping AK-47 in Star Wars.
That's right.
And that was one of the trailer shots for the original.
I know, and I was like, stood here. Anyway, that was the one
where realism got a little bit too real right there.
One minus, like, half a point on the prop design for this show. For the one AK-47, I was like, come on, man.
I mean, do you know that there were people on YouTube who were trying to levy criticism against the show for things having screws in them?
Yeah.
Which is absurd if you've ever actually seen Star Wars.
Yeah.
Unless you only ever saw the prequels.
There are a lot of people who are like that.
Yeah, stupid.
They think that the prequels are some masterpiece or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah, prequel memers.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say about Aldani, you remember when they're hiking over the mountain and you can hear the TIE fighter in the distance?
Yeah, that was great.
That was part of going into your point of making it seem like the Empire's like not just a bunch of bumbling idiots. Like, they're an actual like entity to fear.
They go on patrols.
Just the TIE fighter itself, they're in the background, and all 5 of the people just like stark still, and they're like, oh, patrol, and they all drop, and you hear the TIE fighter come flying by at low altitude, where it's like, and it's like, dude, did the TIE fighter see them? Like, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the sound design was great in that particular too, because it's like, you hear a TIE fighter in other movies, you're like, oh yeah, whatever, they'll shoot it down in 5 seconds. But the TIE fighter flies
because it's going to grab it with his force powers.
That's what people wanted to happen.
Yes, yeah.
Well, Rey did it for the whole shuttle.
And then we're not talking about Skywalker. That's a different. We already talked about that show.
the hatchet on that one.
Yeah. Anyway, what I was gonna say about the prison itself was like, I thought it was cool when they left and they get back to the paradise or the tropical place where his ship is and the money and stuff, and he like gets on the phone and finds out that his mom died. I appreciated that that they casted Melchi. That dude's in Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that before. I was like, why does this guy look familiar? And then I watched Rogue One like a week ago, and I was like,
It's she.
Anyway, so I appreciated that he gets out. They're like hanging out there, and he's like, dude, we gotta we gotta assume that we're the only two that made it out. And we gotta tell people about this, because people don't know what's happening. We gotta tell. And that kind of talks to like Melchi's character, which for me, he was not really a throwaway character, but he was definitely a background character in Rogue One. That was definitely a cool thing where he's like, oh, we know about Melchi now. He's definitely, I could totally see why he ends up a rebel soldier now. Yeah. It's like, we got to talk to people about the Empire. We got to tell them. We got to warn people.
He realizes he got, exploited for all he was worth.
Yeah. Which I thought was cool. And I really liked that he was in it.
Yeah, Justin likes the exploiting for all they're worth. Very cool.
No, but I thought that part of the plot was cool.
Well, it ties into Rogue One so well.
Yes.
Like, you wouldn't think that. Like, one of the apprehensions I had about the show was what can Andor actually learn and grow over the show? Because we know who he is as a character at Rogue One. Like, in Rogue One, he still has to do the whole trusting people character arc. Like, he hasn't developed that ability yet.
Not even a little.
Like, and so what is he going to learn in this show? And so it's interesting when they actually don't have him learn to grow and trust people in this show. He's very much shown that the world is a dark place, and so he has to...
I hesitate to even call him the protagonist, really, just because of...
Like, yeah. I don't think there's really very many people in this show who are likable, like, as characters. They're interesting, they're developed, but likable, like, I don't know, because I still think they're really cool to watch, and I really enjoyed a lot of the characters and some of their things, but, like, Luthen's a jerk. Like, he's a really cool guy.
He just sacrificed 30 people,
an entire rebellion cell, because that would keep his one informant alive.
Like, that whole scene with Saw was incredible. I was like, holy crap, this is Saw Gerrera. We've been following him around
since Clone Wars.
Back of Clone Wars. So I don't remember if he was in Rebels.
He was, yeah.
Slightly older.
Yeah, but he's also in Fallen Order, and we've seen him in Rogue One, where they definitely said he's, like, I can't remember what they used.
Extremist.
Extremist, that's the word. Like, he's definitely an extremist. And you can see in the show, he's like, yeah, let's call it what it is. It's war. But it's definitely like, he's like, you're willing to sacrifice a whole cell?
Like, it establishes that there's different factions, that the rebellion is not this organized group just yet.
Definitely not.
Like, Saw doesn't even want to work with the other cell because the guy's a separatist. And the separatists were the ones that killed Saw's sister back in Clone Wars.
True.
And so, like, there's reasons and motivations and actual characters, which is so weird for one of these TV shows on Disney+. It's like, where is this coming from?
Where did they get off?
Where does the show have the gall to be good?
To actually have developed characters and...
I will say, the whole Mon Mothma thing, like, I thought her stuff was interesting, but, like, the end shot where she is acquiescing to that mob boss or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I was like...
Shady merchant.
I was shocked. I was like, no way is Mon Mothma doing this. And then the door opened, I was like, no, kid, no. I was like...
Don't sell off your kid, no.
And she sold out her kid!
Well,
that whole part was wild to me. I was like...
It just goes to show, for every single one of these characters, the rebellion is bigger than a single person.
Oh my gosh. And I was like...
Andor doesn't get a happy ending in this first season.
No, he doesn't. Nobody does.
Like, even Ferrix is about to get just whooped by the full force of the...
bodied by the Empire. But like, Bix and the homies, they're like running away from Ferrix.
Yep, without Andor.
Without Andor.
And then the coda of the very whole season is that post-credit scene where you see the
Dude,
You learn that he's building the weapon that kills him.
Yeah.
this is wild. That was a wild shot. I was like, oh, we're going to learn what those pieces are. And as soon as the droid popped it into place, I was like, oh, this is something to do with the Death Star. I was like, I'm 100% sure. And then it comes
And then
out
the camera actually backs out to see that this is the opening shot of the show.
That was the other thing. I was like, oh, that's awesome. They've been hinting to it the whole time.
I didn't see any Wookiees there, though. Canonically, there were Wookiees building the Death Star. What the heck, showrunners? You missed that detail.
No, but
You're not a perfect show, Andor. Just reminding you.
I think it was the honest trailer for this, which the honest trailer for the show is really, really good.
Yes.
But they make the point that it's like the rebellion actually needed. They couldn't all be like Luke and Han and Leia going off and doing adventures every movie. It required people to actually sacrifice their lives and their whole thing to the rebellion and get dirty.
That's war.
Like the whole thing with Luthen where he's like, I've committed myself to I've made my mind to sunless space. That whole exposition, his whole like, I don't want to say sermon, but his whole lines in that point.
His monologue.
His monologue was probably one of the most interesting scenes in the whole show.
Yeah.
Seriously, it really was. And the guy's like, well, I don't want to be an ISP anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. He's like,
well, let me tell you, son.
let me tell you why you're wrong.
Let me just make this crystal clear. You don't have a choice anymore.
Also, there was a theory that I saw where people think that Luthen is a Jedi.
I hope not.
There's a part of me that thinks it would be cool if he was a Jedi, but also there's a part of me that's like, I actually like that he's just an art merchant.
He's a regular guy.
I really like the idea that he's an art merchant that puts on a wig and has to put on this facade of being like, I go around the wilds of the universe and pick up cool stuff like the Star Killer armor.
That's right.
His place is like, there's the chakra stones from Indiana Jones.
That's right.
I was like, well, his whole thing was, there was a Gungan shield in there. I spent some time searching around his art shop, which I thought was really cool. He also has a Sith holocron, Shadow holocron. Anyway.
But yeah, like it would. Yeah. The whole point of Rogue One is that they weren't Jedi. They're not space wizards who can solve all of your problems with a wave of a hand.
Yes.
Like, and so having any of these characters be a Jedi would kind of be a disservice to them, I feel. Like,
yeah.
Like, they're regular people that are fighting for what's right, and they are willing to sacrifice. Like, the show was not, in my opinion, perfect, but it was a good show.
It's a good step in the right direction, I think. If they may do anything more like Andor, they will definitely win people over. Like, if Ahsoka is anything like Andor, it will be good. Now, I don't think it will be, because they're going to have to...
It's Ahsoka.
They're going to have member berries, and Dave Filoni's going to be like, remember when Ahsoka was like this in the Clone Wars?
Well, the problem is going to be Rebels, too.
Yeah, but I know. But, I mean... my point being, if you could see it with Marvel too. Like Marvel is aimless now because Thanos and the Infinity Stones are all gone. They don't have an aim, and Star Wars is a little bit like that. But if they keep doing Andor stuff like Andor, like if Mandalorian season 3 is like Andor or anything close, I think it'll be better.
What with actual sets and good dialogue and camera work that's actually good and really ambitious show writing and show running and like that kind of stuff, or
yes,
or should we just have more Luke Skywalker CGI references?
That's 2 minutes out of how much good stuff in season 2? I actually really like season 2. I don't get people's hate.
I thought season 2 was good too, but it like. Quality-wise, compared to Andor, I don't think that the show is on the level that Andor is. Like, Andor has set the new bar for Star Wars stuff now, and I don't think anything's going to reach it. At least in the foreseeable future.
But we could be surprised.
I would definitely be happy to be surprised. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that they set the bar really high with the way that the show is.
They did. And the thing is that it's consistent.
Yes.
It's consistent quality.
Tone. His shots, like, were you guys watching this and just every once in a while you're just like, whoa. Like, some of the shots in this show were like, especially the one with the eye, I was like, whoa, Holy crap! Whoa!
Like movie quality.
Yeah, I know.
Which is something that Disney's been trying to do, a lot of movie quality scenes and stuff in their shows on Disney Plus, but you can see a lot of times when they go too far for what is really effective on a TV show. Like Obi-Wan throwing the rocks at Darth Vader, and it looks like cardboard and polyester rocks, and
What was that fight, man?
it was something else. But like, when you contrast that with the really limited special effects in Andor, and how they made every single one of them really work and be effective, and all of these scenes are shot on location in actual places in the world, and like, that was pretty good stuff.
I think it's also cool that Diego Luna, isn't he an executive producer on this show?
I think so.
Man, he's going to be able to punch his ticket, I think, producing wise. He does good. If Andor's as good as... If Season 2 is as good as 1, he'll be able to do whatever he wants.
That's what Dwayne Johnson thought, too.
No, well, okay, but Dwayne Johnson hooked his star to friggin' DC, and DC was a mess. It's still going to be a mess.
Well, the thing is that Dwayne Johnson's all about him.
The hierarchy of power in the DC universe has changed.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, there's a whole... That's a different...
Would there be anything that you guys would change about Andor Season 1?
I'm not really sure, because like I guess my only really issue with Andor is that with the way that it's structured, it's not really, not that I really like binging stuff, but it's not really a show that you could just pick up and watch at any point, kind of like to Justin's point earlier.
Oh yeah, you need it.
True.
You need to watch the beginning
whole
to
thing.
end.
Yeah.
And it's structured in such a way to where, like, 3 or 4 episodes will tie together as one thing. And so if you are going to watch parts of Andor and, I guess, feel satisfied without watching the whole thing at one point, you kind of have to watch individual arcs. Like the initial arc where everything's getting set up, or the Eye, or the prison arc, or the finale for that matter, which is really just kind of 2 parts. But I guess that's my only really thing that I have issue with, but like that, even then, that's just a pacing thing, really. Yeah. It's not really an inherent problem with the show. That's just the nature of how you consume it.
I don't know. I don't know if I would change anything about it. Maybe, well, I don't know. I definitely agree with you with the pacing, though. Like, you can't just jump into episode 3 or whatever. Because if you just watch one episode of this show, you won't understand. They deal a lot with intentions and motivations of characters. Like, if you go straight into the finale of Andor, you won't understand why Andor is coming back to save Bix, or why his mom cared so much about the rebellion, or why everybody is mourning Marva, or why Deidre's there, or you know what I mean? Like, you won't understand why everybody is in spots. So, I don't know. Maybe I agree with Zach. I think maybe they could make it maybe a bit more accessible, but that also goes back on why I like it so much.
Because it pays off your investment.
Yes. I also will say, I will agree with you. There were two things about the show. Well, one, I really like Luthen's ship. I think you said it to me where it was like, finally, a high-tech spaceship in Star Wars.
How many ships in Star Wars that are the main ships are actually nice? I mean, you've got the Millennium Falcon, which is a hunk of junk. You've got the Ghost, which is also kind of a hunk of junk. It's like every single main ship in Star Wars is charming and iconic, but they're not high-tech. They're not nice-looking ships.
Luthen's ship, he's driving around like a Ferrari.
Which is so fitting for his character. He's an antiques collector.
The port and starboard lasers.
Lightsabers on the side of his car. That whole sequence when he gets stopped with the tractor beam is fantastic. It's so awesome.
I'm not saying I needed moments where I'll go, oh, but I definitely appreciated it.
You liked having some. And it's good because there weren't tons of them in the show.
That's true.
Like, you weren't overwhelmed with just nonstop action. There were so many moments of suspense and tension and building up to those moments.
They were definitely satisfying. That was another thing. It was like satisfying. When he flies the ship through the eye, and he's like, yeah, we're going into the eye. And all of them are like, no, we can't do that. And he's like, yes, we are. And he flies up into the comets. That part was awesome. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. He's going to probably die, but that sure looked cool. And then TIE fighters get blown up, and I thought that was cool. But, like, there were some other parts, like the heist or when he kills the guy's like, let's just split the money. He's just like, blows him away. And then, anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
The climaxes and stuff paid off. Like when they jump off of the prison, I was like, "Oh, they did it! Oh my gosh!"
Now they have to swim away.
They have to swim away,
And they have to hitch a ride with those two fishermen.
Then the quad jumper from Force Awakens.
What a piece of junk!
Oh
The
man,
garbage will do.
Garbage will do.
no.
Yeah.
I'll have to Kanja Club.
There's no memes in Andor. What the heck, guys?
It's not a good show if it's not going to make a cultural impact.
I don't know.
We're being sarcastic.
Sarcastic, but I don't know. I thought that this show had. It definitely world builds. If nothing else, it definitely world builds why the rebellion ended up being the way that it was, and why the Empire was in power.
One way out.
Yeah.
One way out.
Anyway.
But yeah. Like, the only thing I would really improve, we kind of mentioned it earlier, is I was just so frustrated with the world building in that you've got the ISB, which is supposed to be the overarching spy organization of the entire
The Imperial Secret
Empire,
Yeah.
which is essentially the CIA, the Secret Service, and the FBI all combined into one. And it's 12 people in a council room for the entire galaxy. And all of the plot happens because one of these 12 people is interested in a single event on a tiny planet where one thing gets stolen.
Yes.
Do you know, like, billions of dollars get lost from military expenditure every year in the United States, and no one cares. You think one item being stolen from one ship in the middle of Imperial space, when tens of billions of people are involved, is going to matter at all? Especially to one of the 12 people in charge of the entire spy service of the Empire? Like,
But
and that's the whole point of the plot. That's how it starts. Is because of the one thing that Andor did, stealing that item. That starts the entire plot. There wouldn't be a plot if she didn't say, something was disappeared off of
fishy about this.
off of an Imperial base in this sector. It's like, so I'm sure billions of things disappear off an Imperial base in that sector. The CIA has a base, has an operation house in every single city on the planet.
well, there was also the thing about the two corpos being murdered, but even then,
But even
Let's handle that.
Yeah.
Why would that be the like if two mall cops get shot in Las Vegas, the FBI isn't going to set up a national manhunt. Well, an international manhunt. They work with the CIA and Homeland Security, and they say, hey, these two security guards got shot. What if that's connected with the grenade that got stolen in Afghanistan last year? One grenade disappeared. I think this is the work of the... What was the word she had for Luthen? The
Axis.
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 The one grenade got stolen in Afghanistan. This was Axis. The two security guards? Axis.
I love the fact. I thought it was hilarious when Cyril and that one sergeant guy. By the way, that sergeant guy doing the best he could, but sometimes I could not understand what that dude was saying.
talking about the Scottish guy.
Yeah, that's
the point. Like,
the point. But
he's a happy...
I was like, oh, man. Like, whatever. Anyway, that's a different topic. But I love the fact that when they waltz up to the funeral procession, they walk right past Luthen, and Luthen knows that they're like Imperial or something. Like he has alarm bells that go off, and they're
Or at least Imperial and Jason.
yeah, he's like, oh, all right. He really gets it. I thought that was awesome. I also love the fact that he runs around with a hood. Just that whole finale was really entertaining to me. And also, I am really glad that Deidre, when Woody saves her,
Woody saves her.
I
There's
literally
a snake in his boot.
I literally could care less about that guy. That was one thing that I would change. I would nix that character from the show. He did nothing but creep Deidre out.
And have his whole weird thing with his mom, where she would just talk about how not a man he is.
Blue milk.
But
whatever his cereal was.
I'm holding judgment on him because, like I said, we've only seen half the show.
That's true.
Everything that happens in the first season could have reactions in the second, and so I'm not ready to pass judgment on him just yet.
I wonder if he ends up being an ISB inspector.
I hope Dietrich shoots him.
I really would like. I think it would be cool if we started out the show where Deidre thinks she owes him something, and he becomes an ISB person, and then she realizes what a mistake he is, and then like contracts one of the.
She meets his mom, and she decides to.
Gosh, dude, what would bug me the most is if those two started dating.
We have a whole episode of dates between Cyril and Deidre where they go and capture rebel spies, and they meet his mom, and they eat blue cereal, and.
That's what they do in Rebels, you know?
They go to the antique shop to buy something.
Dude, that would be hilarious. If they ended up going to Luthen's shop and they're like, I'm looking to
a wedding gift
from my wife. He's like, what about this Star Killer armor?
Right.
What about this precious item from Aldani? And Deidre starts having like PTSD.
Hey, wait a minute.
That'd be funny. I think it's funny that like the fact that they like linked up, but it's really funny when he's at home. He gets fired. And he goes home and he's eating the cereal, and he's like, "You've been in my private box." It's like, what's happening? I have ways of telling. You don't. Shut up.
I'm glad he robbed his mom at the end.
Oh my gosh, I literally could.
She wouldn't stop talking about Uncle, what's his name? Always there to help you out.
Okay, I've changed it. I do have. I lied. That would be my one change. I literally, his storyline could have been one episode, and he would have popped back up in the finale, and I would have been just fine.
Bro, at least they didn't do the Rise of Skywalker kiss cop out thing at the end of the finale.
That's why I was glad about. I'm glad that when they were hiding in that closet, or whatever that was. Why are you helping me? You'll never. I should thank you. He's like, you'll never have to. Like he's some sort of Batman or something.
He's got a Napoleonic complex. He thinks he's the biggest hero.
On his trailers, he said he has an Oedipus complex. And I was like, no way. That's exactly what that guy is. He doesn't have his mom. He hates his mom. Let's focus his...
Deidre will be his new mom.
Dude. That's so grody.
He's got mommy issues.
Yeah. But I know... So here's the reason why I didn't initially say that. Because I know his character is supposed to be like weird and make your skin crawl a little bit. So I know he's supposed to be like kind of on purpose gross, but I just at the same time I want to hit him with a baseball bat. Like
that means they're doing his character right.
Of course they are. That's what bothers. It bothers me that they did his character so well.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
the last note that I'll leave my comments on, because I don't really have anything else to say, is about the whole ISB thing you were talking about earlier, Jared. It all makes sense once you realize that the showrunner, Tony Gilroy, also wrote the Bourne trilogy.
Oh.
That totally makes sense.
He's the Bourne trilogy.
All right. Okay.
Where they just have a single table of CIA guys who run every single operation throughout the entire planet.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. Well,
that definitely reflects in like the actual writing and the intensity of some of the movement scenes. Where's our car chase in Andor? We need a good car scene on the streets of Coruscant.
Well, after the freaking Power Rangers bike chase scene in Boba Fett, I'd rather not.
Gosh.
I'd rather not.
Well, I guess there was that one little bit where they had the fake cargo and the mall cops all were shooting at the fake car.
That was cool,
and it blew up. And
that was cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was cool.
That could be the Bourne car chase of this series.
right?
No, but it will be interesting. Going forward, it will be interesting because, according to the showrunner, each episode is going to cover some time, from what I read. Like, this is going to go right up to when Rogue One starts. So I really hope the last scene is him getting on a ship from, like, Yavin 4 to going to that one asteroid that he's at in Rogue One. That would be cool.
To the informant that he kills?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or congratulations, you are being rescued scene. Like you have him outside
Please don't resist.
the trailer as she gets.
Dude, I really hope he gets K2SO in season 2.
I'm pretty sure they do, don't they?
That's the only thing that I think is missing. I miss Alan Tudyk.
Well, it makes absolute sense that would happen. So
that would be hilarious. I really like K2SO.
We've covered about half the characters of Rogue One. We just need to do the other half. Get the Guardians of the Wills involved. I am one with the horse. And the horse is with me.
Leave Donnie Yen and them alone. I like their arc in Rogue One. Plus, I don't think that they would do that. I don't know. It doesn't fit the rest of the show. Maybe they will. I don't know.
We'll see.
We need to go get some Kyber crystals.
Oh, jeez.
Well, any other comments you guys have?
No, I like the show.
I liked it.
It was good.
All right. Well, I think we're all in agreement then. This was a pleasant surprise, it being as good as it was.
Yep.
Yes.
Definitely looking forward to more. And also, we look forward to doing more of these discussions when more stuff comes out later this year, because there will be stuff that we'll be talking about, I'm sure.
Yep.
We're
going to have to talk about Mission Impossible.
Oh, yes. That'll be good. In the meantime, if you liked this discussion, please feel free to give me a like, as well as subscribe to the channel so that when more videos like this come out, you can come check them back out. And again, thank you all for listening. I'm Zach, and then
Justin,
Jared.
We're all happy to present this content to you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Bye. Bye.